So part 3 in the series He Thirst, the conversation begins between a Jew and a Samaritan woman. John chapter 4, 7, 9. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me drink. Give me a drink." And this is the time when the disciples had gone away to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria?" For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans, the author lets us know. Four times the author brings the word up Samaritan. All right? Or Samaria, or some reference. We also know that Jesus is a rabbi, and we also know that this woman is a Samaritan woman. So now let's talk a little bit about their culture. So I'll give you a little bit about their history, right? So now we're in this scenario. Jesus is at the well, and here's a little bit of history about their time. In their culture right now, remember I used the word social construct. Now, if you don't know, or if you haven't heard, or if you don't understand what that means, it breaks down to an idea that has been created and accepted by the people in a society. For example, such as class distinctions are a social construct. Sometimes the way we worship, social construct, okay? The way I think about a white person and a black person and the stereotypes that come. Yeah. Our church is better than your church. Yeah. I'm better because I'm proud of who I am and where I come from and my nation is better than your nation. That mentality. I'm not even talking about gangs or prejudice, terrorist groups. No, I'm just talking about you and me. I'm talking about your Thanksgiving. I'm talking about your birthdays. I'm talking about your family events. I'm talking about and even in your tribe, your social constructs that you build and allowed to govern the way you think, to govern the way you live, to govern the way you perceive even your own family and how you behave towards them. Or your neighbor, or that person behind the counter at the store. Some of you guys you see two people in a mall charging cash, let's just say a Hy-Vee. Some of us won't go to the colored one, if that's the word you want to use. Someone who's not of your ethnicity. Maybe that's better. Someone who doesn't look like you, dress like you, brushes hair like you, doesn't look like you at all. You might just pass them by and go to the next aisle where someone looks like you. Blonde hair, blue eyes, maybe. Or maybe you're a black person avoiding a white person, or a brown person avoiding a Chinese person. I don't know. But these are some of the things that you're going to start picking up in this story that happened. So let me talk to you about how Jesus shows up on the scene and destroys these social constructs with his actions, with his words. He had to go. He had to go and destroy these things. He had to go to Samaria. He had to go. All right. So let's talk about the culture in that time. We know that the women were not very highly, they weren't valued. They weren't in a high position in this culture. I'm going to quote some of the things of their time, some of the phrases that they had, some of the unspoken laws of their time. So in the rabbinical law, it instructed that the rabbis to never talk to a woman in public, not even their own wives or sisters, okay? So the fact that Jesus was positioning himself to ask this woman for a drink, that alone they would have taken and judged him for. They would have said that he violated there. It was back in a time when it was better to. It was said back in that time that it was better to burn the law of God. This is the common. This is the social construct of the time. They would rather burn the law of God than to give it to a woman or talk to a woman about it, because they didn't believe that they could handle the concepts. They didn't believe that these things were too complex for the women's mind. So this was one of the social constructs of the day. So in this culture, more things that regarding women, it was believed that the women were unable to comprehend, like I just said, or even understand the complicated matters of theologies and religion. They just thought that the women were not made for that. They could not handle this. The text also reveals to us that this Samaritan woman came at noontime in the day of heat. Many different commentaries speculate different things. We don't know. We don't know if she was there trying to meet a stranger, because she knows travelers come also, and they try to come at different times when most of the villagers are not there. Those travelers from out of the region. We don't know if she was trying to make money or make connections or get to know somebody. We don't know that. We don't know if if she's just coming out during the daytime because the other villagers come out in the morning, or come out after the sun, right before, the sun sets in the cool. They don't know. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. But she came out during the day, when people usually who are, it is said, rejected or outcasts, or those that keep the distance from them, this would be the adequate time to come out if you were alone, isolated in this kind of culture. Mm. So, like I said, either she was a social outcast or could potentially be searching for an outside traveler to gain money or trade something. At this time, in this area, for all Middle Eastern people in this time, in this area, and even to nowadays, it is believed that they still carry the same kind of style of bucket. A bucket with two kind of sticks and in the mouth of it that twist and latch, open up when you sink it down and allow water to come in. Two sticks with leather, so it looks like you can actually roll it up. Makes it easy for traveling, but when you fill it, obviously it rolls out. You fill it with water and it gets heavy. All right. So it's believed that everybody should have one of these, especially if you're traveling. It was an essential thing for traveling. Okay, so remember that. Remember that these water buckets were an essential thing for traveling. So we know that the Samaritan woman brought such a bucket with her, but not Jesus. See, the text assumes that Jesus should have some. The passage assumes that he was traveling, he should have a bucket. But remember that the disciples went to the next town. They went off to go get some food. Could it possibly be that Jesus allowed them to take this bucket because he needed to put himself in the place of necessity towards this woman? He needed to engage her. Here's here's something that, especially a pious Jew or somebody who was religious or somebody who adhered to the Torah at their time, if they were to come in a Samaritan, and especially a Samaritan woman, especially because it's like a double. It's like not only was there a Samaritan, but they're letting you know through the text, the author saying it was Samaritan, but she's also a Samaritan woman. All right, you need to not let that go here, because this is big in this time. What Jesus is doing. So the Samaritan woman is about to be surprised. Her social constructs that she's had they're about to explode. So she approaches this place. She noticed that there's a man there. And it's just like anybody else. You go to a store, you see me, or you see somebody that looks like me, that resembles me in my ethnicity. Your mind in seconds, everybody's mind, no matter what it is, you start having preconceptions, prejudgments. Your mind will tell you, this is how tall he is, this is his hair color, this is some stereotypes about him. He doesn't look threatening, he looks very threatening. All that happens in split seconds. Maybe even faster. Just That's what's happening to this woman as she's approaching the well. It didn't take her all the way up to get to his face to know he was a Jewish man. So when she approaches the well, to her surprise, that Jesus was sitting next to it or on it or by it, right in the way, she approached it and she expected, because it was the social norm of the time, it was what was done. She expected this Jewish man to move out of her way. She knew she could get him to go away for 25 feet was the distance. 25 feet he should have walked away. He should have backed up about 25 distance, allowed the woman to get her water, never addressed the woman, stare her off as she leaves. But he didn't. This woman approaches, and as she's approaching, I guarantee she's saying 20 feet. I'm thinking she's even thinking 15 feet. I think she's saying, what in the world? Is this man sick? What's going on? This Jewish person does not even move out of my way. What in the world is going on today here? He was supposed to be a minimum of 25 feet. But Jesus did not move, to her surprise. There is no social distancing that Jesus did as this woman approaches her. Jesus does not move. Then Jesus decides to destroy the social construct of their day by not removing himself and then asking for a drink of water. My goodness. Not only did he not remove himself, he asked for a drink. And then he does this in the midst of no witnesses. You're not supposed to talk to a female in public. You're not supposed to talk to her or address her, not even if she's your wife. Now you're going to do something alone with her? He breaks the social taboo of their time already on many different levels. It was also said that in this time, this was a common concept in a way of thinking for men. Okay? Here's the phrase or quote that I got, just so you can get a little glimpse of what people thought about this time. It was also said in this time, this was a common thing to say, that he that talks much with a woman or womankind brings evil upon themselves. He neglects to study the law, and at last you will inherit the fire. You will inherit that. Man. Jesus not only talked to the woman in this time, but we know that he also brought, like what I'm going to say, not only did Jesus talk to women in this kind of culture, but he invited them to his disciple group. He did work with them, discipled them. Some of them financed his mission. Some of them helped. They were with him. He used them. He empowered them. He equipped them. He called them. He commissioned them. We're going to see this. Wow. This is big. He's destroying their pattern of thinking. We cannot undermine the racial nature. All right? I'm sorry, not racial. I'm sorry. We cannot undermine the radical. Let me correct myself. The radical, not racial. The radical thing that Jesus is doing here. Don't let this escape. All right? Don't let this escape. Jesus is destroying here the attitude towards women in the way that he treats the women, that he values them, that he calls them and commissions them. He's given them, my gosh, so much more worth than these men around them are giving them. He is elevating them. The woman must be surprised that a male Jew, she's surprised that a male Jew has requested of a female Samaritan a drink from a bucket that will result in Jesus being defiled. If Jesus were to take water from this person, from her bucket, they would say that Jesus defiled himself. But the Lord teaches that defilement does not come from the outside, but what's from within. Okay? All right, so yeah, no Jew would drink from anything or take from any vessel or cup or plate or fork or spoon from a Gentile. So then here we have the Lord destroying these social constructs, right? So before I move on to the next part, I want to talk to you about a little bit about social constructs here. So we are, let me read the verses again. So a woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." The disciples were not around. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink from me, a woman of Samaria?" For the Jews had no dealings with the Samaritans. I want to close here. I have a little bit more to say, but I want to close here with this because it's a great point. You need to understand that here was coming a woman in daylight, in contrast to how Nicodemus came in the dark. Here comes a woman who's been used to being the outcast. Here comes a woman where her day's about to change in 180 degrees. Here comes a woman that's about to be transformed. Jesus had to go here, and Jesus had to do these things so that these concepts and these ideas that they had been formed, they would be destroyed in minutes in a conversation. Brothers and sisters, in order for you and I to really be able to worship in spirit and in truth, the prejudice, the discriminations, the way we see each other, it has to change. And it has to be transformed by the truth. Look at how Jesus viewed these women. Look at how he treated this woman who came out of her town in a time when there was nobody around at the well. Social outcast, maybe. Everybody knows her. Now that you know the truth about this woman and what we're starting to perceive in just the beginning of this study, we're starting to see something. Jesus had an amazing ability to ignore the history, but he also had an amazing ability of in the virtue of compassion and love and forgiveness. You know why? Because he's not holding this against the Samaritan woman. He knows that there's 500 years of history. He understands that this thing has been given to her. This mindset has been passed down from generation to generation. Just like you don't get a kid that grows up just and becomes racist and has a seated hatred against a certain ethnicity. These things are taught. These things are picked up. These things happen from generation to generation. We have a woman here for 500 years who thinks that a Jew asked me, you didn't move out of the way. You stayed on top of the well. How dare you ask me, a Samaritan woman? You know we don't have any dealings. You know we don't like each other. You know we look different. You know we worship different. You know we dress different. You know we believe different. You know we look, act, dress, eat. Everything is different. You know we hate each other. You know we ought to be grabbing each other by the hair and pulling each other's hairs out. You know we're at war and we're in constant striving next to each other. You know what you did to my ancestors. You know how we think about you. That's what's going on. Jesus does a radical thing. He doesn't judge that woman for the things that have been handed down to her from generation to generation to generation up to this point. He doesn't come at her and argue with her and prove her wrong in this sense of that the Jews are better than them. He comes with compassion. He comes with truth. And we're going to see that coming out in the conversation. We're going to see how he destroys what her norm in her day. She was surprised. She was taken aback. A Jewish man, a Jew, you hate us. We're in constant, our nations hate each other. A man does not address a woman in public. A Jew who hates me, a man should not talk to me. I'm a woman and I'm a Samaritan. A Jewish man, a Samaritan woman. The author tells you this should have never went down. A bucket that would have defiled them. This should have never went down. Within 25 feet on the well, he was sitting waiting for the Samaritan. He had to go. That's where we're at. We're at where he starts to destroy the way she used to think. And it gets deeper. It gets deeper, brothers. This is just the beginning. So be blessed. The Samaritan woman starts the talking with Jesus, the Jew. Let us see how this transitions, and let us see how it develops, and let us see the other things that Jesus teaches us as we go forward.